Welcome to part 2, everybody, of the Grim Gazette. As you all know, the Grim Gazette happens every Tuesday here on Twitch over at twitch.tv/TheTeeMonster. And that starts, the Grim Gazette starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's on the East Coast of the United States. And this is part 2. This is where we go into the deep dive of something happening in the paranormal circles. Now, in the previous episode, in the previous Grim Gazette, I did a deep dive concerning Cody and Satori and Project Fear. At that time, they had dropped the first of 3 parts of their investigation of the Conjuring House, which really was an investigation of the Conjuring House and a little more of let's give Cody and Satori one more platform. And I found part 2 to be particularly interesting because I feel like, and I don't think I was alone in this, but I really felt like Dakota and the crew, the Project Fear team, kind of took the gloves off. I felt like they took the gloves off because they were when at the very end of that episode of part 2, they had like maybe half an hour, maybe even less, to investigate the Conjuring House. And I believe Cody and Satori took off. At least they weren't there for this part. It was just the 4 of them in the Conjuring House, and they did their investigation. And watch this exchange. I think this is very, very telling. Watch this exchange between the Project Fear crew when it's just the 4 of them in the Conjuring House.
Still, can you speak with us?
Is there anything that you can say that confirms any of the things that we talked to Cody and Satori about?
Let's keep walking. We'll go into this one now. It's so interesting how, like, now that Cody and Satori are gone, it's almost like dead. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone in here?
Can we back that up and play it again for the kids in the back of the classroom? Because, wow. Wow. It's just the 4 of them in the Conjuring House.
Is there anything that you can say that confirms any of the things that we talked to Cody and Satori about?
Let's keep walking. We'll go into this one now. It's so interesting how, like, now that Cody and Satori are gone, it's almost like dead. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone in here?
This is why, chat, you should not underestimate anybody in how they do paranormal investigation. That includes Project Fear, because in that moment, you know exactly where they stand. I don't know what's more telling. Dakota saying, it's weird how, they're not here and now it's gone really quiet. And then you hear Alex, the one who hasn't had any dead relatives show up and, knock on different things in the house. But it's Alex who goes, mm-hmm.
Hard no.
Hard no indeed. Hard no indeed. When I saw that, I flipped out. I was like, wow. I flipped out hard. I suggest you watch part 2. There's a lot of other little things that come out that makes you go, hang on a minute. And I know there have been like I said, other people have been, talking about, oh, they made this mistake, and I'm sitting there going, guys, you don't have to work that hard. Just go 4650 and let it play.
Still, can you speak with us?
Again, just the 4 of them in there.
Is there anything that you can
Cody.
say that confirms any of the things that we talked to Cody and Satori about?
Let's keep walking. We'll go into this one now. It's so interesting how, like, now that Cody and Satori are gone, it's almost like dead. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone in here?
I really think more people need to be talking about this And that whole thing with energy vicinity and, you know, Dakota being up top and not hearing a peep, but there's all these knockings happening down where Cody and Satori are. They can't even set up sound machines for the steps because of the spirit box aspect. Not the, yes, Gothy, we're back to talking about energy vicinity. Yes. I that particular moment I wanted to do a callback on because, yeah, I would not underestimate Project Fear as a legitimate paranormal investigation team. Some people would say, well, you know, Tia, Broken Watch is right twice a day. All I can tell you is this: when they paired up Project Fear with the Ghost Hunters, they were on point. They were doing great. And between Dakota saying, "Hey, I'll go upstairs and maybe you can tell the spirits that are walking around who have been going up and down stairs, coming in from the basement and from the top floor and walking into the room because of the energy vicinity."
Hard no.
You know, yeah, Thank you for that lurk, by the way. I do appreciate that, Cammy. Depends on how the watch is broken. I'm just saying that was really a good call on their part. And just wanted to do a call back to that. So the deep dive I wanted to take tonight was actually here with something that I noticed that Jason Hawes has been doing of late.
There's been a video that came out recently.
And I wanted to I again, I'm not going to play the whole thing uninterrupted. I'm going to probably jump to different points. But I've noticed that Jason Hawes, and this is, you know, this isn't, I'm not looking at Jason Hawes right now as Satori's dad. I'm looking at Jason Hawes as the founder of TAPS, right? This is the founder of TAPS. This is the guy who basically started making paranormal investigations happen on television. It was Jason and you know, Grant, you know, Jason and Grant, Ghost Hunters, a couple of guys from Roto-Rooter that on their side hustle was investigating ghosts. And they made this a thing, right? They made this a thing on Sci-Fi. Now, the funny thing is, if you go back and you watch the original season of the Ghost Hunters, you can tell that they are trying to shoehorn in the formula of a reality TV show into how the Ghost Hunters did their thing, right? And it wasn't until they actually started getting evidence or they actually started getting real, tangible results, right? And who hasn't aged somehow. Pickling keeps things good. Let me tell you something about Jason Hawes. He has gotten better looking with age, in my opinion. When you see Jason Hawes, you're like, wow, he's a full-figured kind of guy. And then you see him now. I mean, like I said, I saw him from a distance at Penhurst Paracon. He looked like he could bench press me. I mean, he is in phenomenal shape. And yeah, Thadar, seriously, he is in phenomenal shape. In the original Ghost Hunters, he's a full-figured dude. In today, he's got the triangular bod happening. He looks great. He does, without a doubt. He looks, you know, and I think he and I are the same age. And if we're not the same age, he might be a year or two older than me. And yeah, he's looking really good. He's looking really good. He's definitely been hitting it, and good on him for it. But yeah, we're gonna. So I want to talk a little bit about this video that he's doing, and talk about where I think he's going with all this. So let's go on ahead and let's jump in on this.
Everybody. So there's been a video that came out recently by a gentleman by the name of Beardo. Actually, I spoke with him a few times since, asked him if I could use parts of his video, just because I don't ever really respond to a lot of these things that are out there, because we all know, I mean, the internet can be crazy, but he was respectful. He was decent. Though some things I might not like, it doesn't mean I have to dislike the guy. So I'm going to list his video, the address, and a link underneath. Check it out if you get a chance, and we'll go from there. But I want to play his video and just answer these questions. I mean, people have asked, about mine and Grant's relationship and where we stand. Are we still friends? Will we ever work together again? The situation about my daughter, my thoughts on past evidence that was caught, or some things that were questionable. And Beardo brings them all up. So you know what? Why not respond to it openly and honestly? So I'm going to play his video. Please just understand that whether you're a follower of mine, Beardo's, whatever, there's no reason to hate each other. So let's just watch the video, and I'll pause it here and there, and we'll comment. Okay? So here we go.
So what he is talking about, Beardo's going to... So for those of you who do or do not know, Jason is talking about a guy that goes by the moniker Beardo Gets Scared. And if you know, you know. And what I have seen about Beardo has been twofold. One, you love the guy, like the way Aurelis and I absolutely love what he does on YouTube. Or B, you really do not care for him because he is very set in his ways, and he has a very rigid look at how people should be investigating. Now, my thoughts about Beardo is I dig what he does. But I'm also in the same camp with Jason. There's some things that I disagree with Beardo. Doesn't mean that I have to basically say that he is. I got a comment about how he looks, about his appearance, or anything like that. And this is something I think that we all, not just in the paranormal circles, but just in general, you can disagree with people and still get along with them. This whole polarization and the loss of being able to have civil discourse, I think has gotten a little out of hand. And maybe it's because the internet has made it so, We have to be very careful about some of the things that we say when we're recording at OSI. A couple of times Phil has said, T, you need to pump the brakes on that. Now, Phil is way more laid back than I am. Yeah. You all know this about me already. You know that I can get tightly wound around certain things, and I let it go. It's part of how I deal with it all. But I would never, like, for example, when I was going off in part 2 of the last episode, and I was talking about, I did go a little far when I was talking about Cody and saying if he doesn't realize what he's doing by wearing TAPS gear in a situation like this, he is a bigger idiot than he looks. And you know what? In retrospect, I look at that and I go, that might have been going a little too far. That might have been pushing things, the envelope just a little too much. But I also said it because I'm thinking, well, I don't think he's that stupid. I don't think he's stupid. I personally think he knows exactly what he's doing, and I made that clear in the previous previous part. Beardo just unsubscribed to the Foreman brothers. Yeah, I saw that video. Actually, I saw why he unsubscribed to them, and I understand why he unsubscribed for them. That kind of makes sense because Beardo has to now think, okay, these guys have been nice to me. They seem like good guys, but I, unfortunately, with what the direction they're going with their investigation, there may be some blowback on my part. And that's a risk you always take. It's a bit like with me and Project Fear. I've been very open on my thoughts concerning Project Fear. I've been also very open about my thoughts of Spooky AF Productions. That's Call Me Chris and Selena Spooky Boo. Hey, how you doing there, Adam? Welcome to the Grim Gazette. So there's been there is that notion, there is that idea that there's a certain way that you have to investigate, and I try to be open-minded on a lot of things, provided there is a sense of respect. And there really is a sense of focus, as well as a methodical process. not every tap, not every noise, not every reaction, not everything you get off a ghost tube is proof of the paranormal. It really isn't. But if done right, it can really make for a really good conversation. And if done right, the stuff you bring back from an investigation gets harder to refute. Now, one of the things that Jason is talking about in this video, he's talking specifically about a video that Beardo did about something that went on with Grant at an investigation, and I'm going to skip past that because that's not really what I'm here to talk about. And it was Jason at no time does Jason say, yeah, I think it was rigged. Yeah, I think there was a problem. I'll go ahead and let Jason speak for himself here.
Leaving the show, I was okay with. Yeah, it sucked, but I was okay with because I had worked with Steve for longer.
So let me back this up. They're talking about, so the theory was, and this is something I think that's also important to point out. The theory was that, I'm just going to go into just do with the nutshell thing. I'm linking back to Jason's video, but I also suggest that not only do you look at Jason's video in a whole, go back and follow his link back to Beardo's original show. Yeah, I'll put it in our show notes as well, where Beardo talks about this particular incident with Grant, and he basically theorizes, well, this happened, and then Grant leaves the show. That's not necessarily what happened.
To Beardo, I mean, they did a great job on this video.
He did.
And
he did.
I definitely recommend people check it out and draw their own conclusions from this. Now, when it comes down to Grant leaving the show, Grant didn't. I know there was speculation. Oh, this is where Jay and Grant's relationship fell apart. And this is, I mean, Grant was still on the show for seasons after this.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that I give Jason mad props for doing. He debunks that straight out of the box. Straight out of the box. There was a suspicious thing that happened on a live show of Ghost Hunters, and people are theorizing that was why Grant suddenly left the show. But you'll notice that the live show was a Halloween show in 2008, and then Grant leaves 4 years later. 4 years later, right? I think I know what is being talked about with Grant, and I watched the clips around it. It seems very shady. I don't think that's where things fell apart. Honestly, it didn't even happen here. This is what I kind of wanted to focus on. So let's go ahead and let's sit back.
So this isn't where Grant decided he was going to leave the show.
Right.
This isn't where we started having problems. So let's be honest. I mean, we're together with each other. I mean, we hung out for 10, 15 years prior to the show, but we were together with each other all the time. So whether it was plumbing, which I trained him as a plumber and he rode with me. And then for a while, him and his family lived with us. So because he had moved back from Utah, and then the show took off. So we were on the road, 5-6 days out of the week with each other the entire time.
This is another thing a lot of people didn't know. They also owned a hotel, a restaurant, and a bar together. I mean, in the words of Letterkenny, everybody, in the words of Letterkenny,
I suggest you let that one marinate.
Jason was basically married to Grant. I believe it's Grant Wilson is his last name. But Jason was married to Grant just like he was married to his other thing. Yeah, there's a lot of togetherness happening here, Aurelius. Yeah, and the cool thing about the hotel, restaurant, and bar they owned, it was haunted. They used it as a training ground for their new initiates. And that's the thing, Adam. That's the thing. Sometimes you can. It's one of the things that well, I'm going to save that thought, kind of file in the back of my head, but I want to again return back to this.
You can wear thin on each other. You can. Bottom line, I don't care who you are. You wear thin on each other. So of course there was tension there, and a lot. Grant leaving the show, I was okay with. Yeah, it sucked, but I was okay with because I had worked with Steve for longer than I worked with Grant. I had known Steve for years prior to me even knowing Grant. So I was okay with it. And also, again, because it's just you wear thin on each other. And he left because he had his own personal issues. Those are his own private business, and I'll let him contend with that. But I think, first off, if I had known if I had known for sure that was fake, I mean, I just admit to it because, hey, I mean, that video would go viral. So it would be a win-win for me. I looked. I couldn't see anything. And even Beardo had said, I looked to the best of my ability. I had checked that. I don't think Grant would do that. So you guys can draw your own conclusion. Watch the videos. Make your own choices. I think where it came down to me and Grant and our issues was at one point, so we had decided that we didn't want to be with that network anymore. And just because it was kind of a headache dealing with them. So we owned the show. So we just pulled it from them, stopped doing the show. And then a few years later, we were asked if we would do the show for a different network. They wanted to do a reboot.
So I'm going to pause it there. Adam says, I mean, I show up for an hour or two a week here, and I think that strains how much T can handle of me. I mean, it's funny. I almost worry. I legitimate worry about stuff like that, Adam, believe it or not. I was worried when Pip and I started doing shared desks together, because I know that when you start doing projects together, whether it's Phil and me with Old Spirits or Pip and I with the shared desk, hell, when Pip and I were writing together, I was terrified. I was terrified that something was going to happen to put the relationship that I had with my wife in jeopardy. And I'll tell you a quick story about that, about where I thought it came close. There was a, and it wasn't even with the original series. It was, I believe it was when we were working on the first book in the Verity Fitzroy and the Ministry 7 spinoff series, right? And there were all kinds of, God, it's making me nervous just talking about it. There were all these problems that were in the plot. And I explained them to Pip. I told her, if this happens here, why does this happen? If this happens here, why does this happen? And I just broke it down. And instead, hey, how you doing there, Spence? And instead of Pip looking at the manuscript and saying, acknowledging what I had found with the problems with this, I'll never forget this. Because she was asking me why was I coming to bed so late, and I told her, and I said, I explained it out, and she stared at me, and she said, maybe you should sleep on the couch. I'm not going to have you stand there and tell me that I'm a terrible writer. And I'm like, what? I was mortified. And I remember she pulled the covers off of me and rolled over and just kind of huffed herself to sleep. And I was like, holy crap, have I lit the fuse? I mean, every fear that I had came to fruition in that moment. And the next day I woke up and I was terrified to speak to my wife. And she looks at me and she goes, I went back to look at some of your notes. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we need to work on some stuff. And I was just like, oh, God, I love you, baby. I love you. I do. I love you so much.
I got to say, that's what I appreciate about you.
I love you so much, baby. I do. I do. By the way.
You better settle down over there. I'm going to come talk to you.
I mean, happy wife, happy life. Exactly, right? And so I was a little nervous. I was worried she was going to come at me with a shovel. But, yeah, I mean, these types of relationships are intense. And I can imagine, I mean, I don't mind saying, I've already had some sit downs with Phil where I say, Phil, are we taking this seriously or are we not? Because I do not want to get my hopes up only to have us kind of just let this fizzle out. I don't want this to fizzle out. I was talking about OSI. And Phil has assured me, this is my happy place. You make it my happy place. This is, and so I was committed. I was committed to this. But let's I'm going to let Jason tell the story. This is heartbreaking. I think what comes up next is he doesn't have to tell this story, but man, I admire him just saying, okay, here's what went down.
Initially, Steve, me, Grant, Dave, all of us, Sherry, we all said, okay, yeah, we'll do it. And then for whatever reason, Grant decided that he wasn't going to, and that's fine. But then they asked me to do the show, Ghost Hunters, without my team. They wanted to cast a bunch of people around me. I didn't care for that. I didn't like that idea because Steve, Dave, and the rest of them, they were all friends. I knew them. I trusted them. Nothing against the new people, but I did. I trusted them. I knew them. I had worked with them for so long. It was a routine. We knew each other. But they wanted me to do the show without the team, and I refused. So instead, we stayed together as a team. And I talked with Travel Channel, and we decided that we were going to do a show with them that we could stay together as a team. But right before we decided that we were going to do that show, we were told by somebody that Grant had been approached to do the reboot without the team and with a new cast. And he accepted. So I think that's where, because you know what? First off, we weren't told. He didn't tell us he was thinking about doing it without anybody. We were told by somebody else. And to find out that we had stuck together as a team and our loyalty to one another was that we were going to stay together. And then he chose to do a show where it was a whole new team. That kind of felt, that rubbed us wrong. That did. It felt like, well, we wouldn't have done the show without you, but you chose to do it without us. So I think that is where mine and Grant's relationship really kind of broke and went our own ways. Now,
and here's the thing. I was always a Team Grant guy. When it came to Grant and Jason, I always felt Grant was the one I related to more. And I'm just a Ghost Hunters fan. That's it. I'm just a Ghost Hunters fan. I can still watch those Ghost Hunter seasons when personally I thought it was always at their best when it was the two of them, right? And see, here's my thoughts on Steve. I think Steve is great, especially when he gets excited because he does this little weird dance, and I kind of dig that. But Steve comes across, even after all these seasons, I just feel like he needs to roll his shoulders a little bit and just kind of loosen up and have some fun. He really does feel and look uncomfortable, except for when he does that little dance. When he does that dance and he gets excited about something, I mean, it's darling. I think he's great. I do. But I was always Team Grant. And as a fan, hearing this story, that breaks my heart. And I'm just a fan. I can't imagine how painful that had to be for not just Jason, but for Steve and Dave. And I gotta admit, full disclosure, I'm coming around to Jason, but if I had to pick one, it's Dave. Dave Tango, baby. There's something about Dave Tango, man. I dig Dave. I like it when Dave Tango starts suddenly saying, you know what, I'm going to do some magic tricks, And he starts doing sleight of hand and card tricks. I'm just sitting there going, you know what, if I was a ghost, I'd be like, oh, do that shit again, bro. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I can't imagine if I had found out that Phil was like doing some not shady, but Phil was closing a deal to do like OSI, but he was going to take it to like, a network or something like that. And he didn't tell me. That would break me. I would show up with all my gear and just leave it on his doorstep and go, then you have a good time. It would break me. It would break me. So I can't imagine why. And I guess that's the other thing. I did not peg Grant as being that kind of guy. Oh, yeah, Brian. Yeah, Brian was the dude, Ithadar. Brian was the dude who ran. And I think this was when I became Team Grant. Grant gave, if I remember correctly, Grant gave Brian a dressing down because they saw something at the Eastern State Penitentiary. And then he went, yeah, exactly. Dude, he said, he screams, dude, run. And it was on video of Brian and one of the camera assistants, and they were booking down the corridor. And I think it was Grant that gave him the dressing down and said, that is the worst thing that you could do as a paranormal investigator, running away from something paranormal. And I felt like, I also remember Grant. I also was very much into Team Grant when it was Grant and Jason, and they were sitting across from this restaurant manager who had rigged up his entire restaurant to have, like, sound effects go off, and there was something behind a two-way mirror that made it look like there was a ghost in the mirror, and he thought he was being funny and clever, and they had basically driven across the country because this guy was like on the coast of California, and they drove because Steve was afraid of flying and is still afraid of flying. Steve made it all the way to California. They drove all the way to California, only to find out that this guy was pulling their leg so that they could say, oh yeah, the ghost hunters were here. And yeah, we had some fun with them. Yeah, Grant was actually trying, focused on getting this guy to come clean. And Grant read this guy a very passive-aggressive riot act. Jason looked like he was about to jump across the table and throttle the dude. And while I admired Grant's calm for that night, I was Team Jason because I wanted Jason to go full fisticuffs with this guy. That didn't happen, unfortunately. But but I always felt like Grant was the cool head between the two of them. I found out later that Jason was the one who convinced Sci-Fi, because Sci-Fi didn't want to air that episode. Sci-Fi did not want to air that episode, and Jason pushed to get them to do that. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was really interesting.
Still think Grant is a great person. He's still a friend of mine.
And this says a lot. This says a lot for Jason, because you can tell that this is still this wound has not healed. And it probably won't heal for some time. And yet, Jace, after the douchebagginess that Grant pulls, this is what Jason says. Oops.
Rubbed us wrong. That did. It felt like, well, we wouldn't have done the show without you.
Right.
But you chose to do it without us. So I think that is where mine and Grant's relationship really kind of broke and went our own ways. Now, I still think Grant is a great person. He's still a friend of mine. I'd be there in a heartbeat if he needed me.
Now I'm Team
but
Jason.
That, I
now I'm
think,
Team Jason.
Became the rift between him and us. We stayed together. We did what we did. And then and don't get me wrong, the people who did Ghost Hunters, the reboot, I met some of the best people out there from that show. And Brian and Rochelle, two of my closest friends. I love them dearly. But it just made the rest of us feel like, wow, it was like a gut punch. It was. So that's where we kind of just went our own separate ways. Now, people have asked, why isn't he on Ghost Hunters with you anymore? And to be honest with you, we just didn't know how that would work after what had happened, after the choices that were made over the team, over friendship and loyalty and so forth. So we just did our own thing. And Ghost Hunters, the reboot, started off strong. It kind of started falling. And then it was canceled by A&E, and we were asked if we would take the show back. And we had said we'd only do it as a team. We sat around and we agreed we'll only do it as a team. And so we took Ghost Hunters back, and that's where we are today. So understand, we all wish Grant the best. It was just choices that were made kind of didn't sit right with most of us. And from there, we kind of just did our own thing. But this video that Beardo is talking about, please take a look at. Draw your own conclusions. Let me know your thoughts. Kudos to Beardo and the people who've watched the video. Greatly appreciate the support. It's all about keeping it real, everybody. So stay safe and on to the next.
So yeah, Jason did not have to make this video. That I think should be made crystal clear. Jason did not have to make this video, but he did. I'm not going to, again, the same respect that I'm giving Project Fear, I'm giving Jason that respect. It'd be very easy for me to sit down and just, it's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do these types of videos, like debunking and stuff like that, because, as a matter of fact, I'll for those of you who are new to the stream, I'll tell you, before the new influx of folks from Doug came into to the stream, and you all have been showing incredible support for me, and I do appreciate that. One of the things that I did was I sat down on my stream and I said, okay, there are going to be some changes coming, and I mentioned that I was going to do something like the Grim Gazette, and the star contributor for tonight, the star contributor from tonight, Secondhand, which again, not only Secondhand, you stumped me, you've stumped my wife too, but Secondhand was adamantly opposed for me doing these types of videos. And I didn't want to do them mainly because, one, I felt like it was low-hanging fruit. It was too easy for me to make content from someone else's content. I just didn't like that concept. And some of the reaction videos that I've seen from other people were toxic. And then I did episode 0 of the Grim Gazette, and I think Secondhand came around to it, and even Marv, who was also opposed to it, everyone was like, "No, T, I think you're onto something here. I think you're good." And so I'm not going to do that where we just watch it from beginning to end. If you want to see all of this episode, link is in the show notes. Take a look at it, and I really do think that this is a video worth watching because again, Jason did not have to make this. Jason is in that position where if he wanted to do this, it's his call. And so, I was genuinely worried there, Secondhand, that it was going to be that typical reaction video kind of thing. But I wanted to make sure that I did it like I told you. Trust me, I'm going to do this my way. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it my way, and it's going to be constructive. I'm going to try to keep it above board, and I'm going to try to make sure that I don't turn to some type of toxic prick. So I worked really hard to get the groove here. Now I will also say, putting Jason under the spotlight like this did make me nervous. But there's some other clips that we didn't see in this that I wanted to mention. He does touch on Satori and Cody a bit. He does say. He gives his stock answer. I don't know how they do it. And that is that he said it and he says it in the same way that he says it on the show and he said it at Penhurst Paracon. It is plausible deniability. I don't know how they do it. Now, Jason says to keep it real, so I'm keeping it real tonight for Jason. I would say to him, then you shouldn't have them on your show. That's my opinion, Jason. Unless you know how they're doing what they're doing, they should not be on your show. And Cody should not be wearing any TAPS merchandise. Period. That is brand management 101. Because I can't remember where, but somewhere in this video, Jason actually says, you can spend years building a reputation and you can destroy it within minutes. He knows the risk. When you watch this video in its entirety, he knows the risk that he is doing. But I do think he should probably sit down with his future son-in-law and say, if you want to defend what you and Satori are doing, that's fine. But you're not doing it wearing TAPS merchandise. And I know it may seem like I am harping on this. It may seem like I've really latched onto this bone and I am gnawing at it until I get to the marrow, but hear me out. And for those of you who are into marketing or understand the basics of marketing, you all know how brand management matters, right? How important it is to understand what brand management is all about. You want to make sure that you are not being misrepresented. And that is where I disagree just a bit with Mr. Hawes. If he doesn't know, he can continue to say, I don't know how they do it. I still don't know how they do it. Okay, cool. If you don't know how they do it, fine. But if it's a little sus, maybe you shouldn't have them on the show anymore. And I mean, they're now doing their own thing, and that's fine. But let me rephrase that, because I'm not in charge of taps. That's Jason's job. But brand management 101. You know, if he wants to, if he is wearing something that has the Taps brand on it, and I'm gonna split this hair even further. It's merch. It's not necessarily Taps merch. It is Taps. It is merchandise that are for Taps members only. And I'll give you an example. We have Phil and I have some merch, right? We have merch that we have made for ourselves. There are these great brewer shirts that we have with the OSI logo on the back, and on the front it says Lead Investigator. And I'll tell you a quick Taps related story, which I'm pretty proud of. I was wearing that shirt when I was doing a Q&A with Amy Bruni and Adam Barry, Kindred Spirits. And I mentioned something about how this has been an amazing experience. Oh, look at this. Rev 3 dude coming in hot with a resub. How about that? Bringing us closer, by the way. Bringing us closer to that that special VR show that I'm going to do. Provided at the end of next week, I hit 300 subs. So that's cool. All right. So going back to what I was saying. So we have these brewer shirts, and the funny thing was that I said that it's been an incredible, 2 years. This has been a journey I've experienced so much. And she said, and look at you, you're already lead investigator of a team. And I went, well, yeah, that's because I'm a founder. And everybody laughed. And of course, Amy and Adam both do this. They both go, touche, sir. But the thing is, we don't sell the brewer shirts that say lead investigator and OSI on the back. There was another t-shirt that we have that has the OSI logo on it, and on the back it says choose one, and it had two check boxes. One checkbox says that was me, the other checkbox says that was not me. And then for our associates, we have and when I say our associates, I mean like our family members and people who do join the OSI crew. We have a shirt that says "You Mega Haunted," and on the back it has the OSI logo. So this is the stuff that we are wearing as members. Yes, exactly. That was me. And these are things, in fact, that reminds me, Spence, I need to get your size. We're getting you a hoodie, right? But here's the thing. You earn that after you go on investigation with us. But we would never sell these. We would never sell this merch because this is the stuff that only the investigators wear. And we want to make sure that that is how it stays. Because it would look bad on us if we were to sell merchandise that anybody could pick up and they go, hey, I'm with OSI. It's like, no, you're not. If you're wearing this, or this, you're with OSI. If you're not, then if you're wearing something else, and we're planning to have merch that other people, that other people can wear. But we want to make sure that we're very clear. This is merch just for us, That one, Cammy, I think I'm going to make it public. That's Shovel. I'm going to make that public, okay? But I don't know if I could say that's OSI or if that's more for this stream. But anyway, have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's again focus back on what I was talking about with brand management. That was the example that I would give Jason. And I would say to Jason, if Jason wanted to talk about this from a marketing perspective and from a PR perspective, that when he shows up, when Cody, because that was the other thing I wanted to point out too. Satori is dressed all in black for this third part of the paranormal, Project Fear, this interview coming up, where basically it's the four of them on one side of the table, and then it's Cody and Satori on the other side of the table. Now, just from the setup of that seems kind of confrontational. I would say to Dakota, yeah, that's not looking like a conversation. That's looking like a straight up confrontation. But then you've got Satori, who's dressed all in black, and then sitting next to her is Cody, and he's wearing the tap skier. And I just think it's a flex, and it's him basically saying, you can ask you whatever you want, but I got the endorsement of Taps behind me. That's how it comes across to me, and I'm sure that's how it comes across to some other people. I cannot confirm that, but as Jason says, you work really hard to build reputation, and you can lose it in minutes. And I just feel like that's something that Jason should consider. Now, speaking of considerations from Jason Hawes, this video is actually part of some new content that he is releasing on his YouTube channel. He did another one, and I wonder if I could find it on the fly. But on his channel, he sat down. It was kind of cool too. He sat down with a skeptic, and it was fun watching him sit down with this skeptic. He was Kenny Biddle of the Skeptical Inquirer, and yeah, it was kind of cool because it was Jason and this dude, and they were really digging in the dirt, digging deep about haunted objects, and they brought up Annabelle, and they brought up that kind of thing, and it was a very compelling conversation. Again, this is on Jason's personal channel, so hopefully I've found the moment that he mentioned something about let's just say the about what is coming for him and Taps. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see if I've nailed it.
Yeah, biased people in the world, I guess.
Okay. And I guess the next question I have is pretty much goes on the back end of this. Have you found that some homes and businesses have tried to not only use your show or just use your name as you started?
This is actually a good conversation covering, right here.
But staged events in order to try to convince you it was haunted, like staged and hoaxed that you've caught. And if you've caught them, I know at least two cases. I believe two cases I know of, but are there more? Like, how many didn't make it to air?
When it comes to the show, I think a couple that we aired, that we caught them, definitely deterred a lot of people from trying to do that television-wise. But we have had people build speakers in their walls. We have and try to hook it to a little microphone system down in a hidden room in the basement to try to create ghostly sounds at certain hours. We've definitely had problems with that. People who put digital recorders, or now this day and age, they'll put a cell phone and make their own alarm system and hide it somewhere in their house. So it goes off and it plays these words or whatever at this certain time. Yeah, so and especially with technology these days, you know that as well as I do. Somebody could have a remote and turn on a recorder in the back room. So you always need to really, really investigate and look for the real answers. So,
just real quick too, I don't know what was Jason's thought about this weird logo behind him. I will say it's a step up from the black curtain that needed to be ironed. I know that feeling well, because that was kind of how I felt when we first tried a backdrop for Old Spirits, and and even Tina was like, yeah, we really kind of need to iron that out, and she did for future episodes, just so you know. But Kenny Biddle from Skeptical Inquirer sounds like a Harry Potter. He does, doesn't he? He does sound like a Harry Potter character. But I personally would have said to Jason, yeah, put the TAPS logo behind you. You own it. You're fine. You should put the TAPS logo behind you. But this is a great question from Kenny to Jason, and these two have been friends for years, which I think is also really cool. Again, you can disagree on stuff and you can still be friends. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, let's get back to this right here.
Yes, we've definitely had people try to pull some over on us. We've been lucky enough that we have caught the majority of those people. But then again, it comes down to a situation where I would put every single one out. You know, every time you catch somebody faking stuff, put it out there. But sometimes production companies and networks don't want to do that because they don't want to start dealing with
Keep this in mind.
Legal ramifications.
Right.
So instead, they just decide not to air the show. So, and that's their choice when it comes down to that. But I still think if you're faking, get called out. I mean, put it out there. Let the world, and you and I have always talked about that. It's like, hey, if you were dumb enough to do this, well, then you're going to have to deal with the ramifications of your actions.
I think it's.
I suggest you let that one marinate.
It's a bummer to hear, like, and I understand the production company, like, or the network not wanting to do that because you're actively pointing the finger at someone and saying, haha, you cheated, we're calling you out.
Because a lot of people get really angry when they see it. Next thing you know, they start calling, they're harassing, they're saying things, and these people could claim now they're feeling threatened. Now
I know about that.
Yeah.
I know really well how that part goes. Because
and actually, that happened to Kindred Spirits. They aired a show, and the people involved, when they basically said, you know, you have something bigger going on here. It's not paranormal. This is psychological. And apparently these people absolutely just went full gun. They were openly harassing not only Amy and Adam, but people on their production staff. They had actually tracked down like the production staff people that were involved, and they started harassing them. So Amy and Adam just went, all right, pull their episode. Pull it. And then they got pissed that their episode got pulled, and they said, look, and this is why, Arialis, if you must know, this is one of the reasons why I'm a little gun shy about doing personal domiciles, doing personal people's homes. Unless it's a place that has some type of history behind it. I'm not one for that. The only exception to that rule, and it really is a huge exception because, oh my God, he's got such a beautiful property and there's so much history behind it, is Wynn Brewer of Linville Manor. And if you don't know those episodes with us over at Old Spirits, you can go ahead and go to Old Spirits Investigations, go to OSI, and look up our second season. And in the second season, you'll see our two-parter based on Linville Manor. And one, Wynn's got a beautiful home, and two, there's a lot of activity there. That would be a place I would take you, Arialis. That's a place I would take you. I mean, it's in Maryland. It's in Upper Marlboro. And you know what? I tell you what. I would be okay meeting you there, and then we do a night at Linville. I don't know if we'd film it. If we filmed it, you'd be cool with it. It'd be fine. But Arialis, I'm sorry, your friend. If your friend wants to investigate a place, that would be a good place to start. That'd be a great place to start.
Figured it.
All right. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop because I feel like I'm trolling you now, Arialis. But I'd be all for it. I'd be all for it because, man, Linville Manor. And you know what? You'll walk away.
Hello there.
You'll walk away with a new friend in Wynn Brewer because, man, and if anybody's curious as to how much I love this place, that was the place where I was. I turned 55, and I threw a party in Wynn's basement because he's converted his basement into a tiki bar.
Unleash the fury!
55, and I could still throw down, everybody. I could still throw down. So yeah, pretty proud of that. Anyway,
As I do that, I have several of those letters framed and hanging on my wall.
But I mean, and some of these businesses
yeah.
can be like, well, my phone line's so packed now with people calling and being negative that I don't have any business. And it's like, well,
Right.
okay.
Right.
But
Well,
I'm under the belief that, well, then you shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Right. You should not have screwed up. You shouldn't have tried to fake it. Any plans for a new show or any projects
this
coming
is
up?
what I wanted you all to
Right now,
pay attention to.
we're in talks.
let me just-
projects coming up?
First place.
Right. You should not have screwed up. You shouldn't
It also feels a little weird with everything that's going on with Cody and Satori, and these guys are having this conversation. Just throwing that out there.
have tried to fake it. Any plans for a new show or any projects coming up?
Right now, we're in talks. I've been in no rush. The main thing is, let's just say I've enjoyed looking into changes. So, I think that's what it comes down to. Is if a network wants to go one way and it's not the way I want, I'll just go somewhere else.
Okay. That's okay. That's fair. And I guess, well, that gives me a shorter follow-up question. Would a certain skeptic ever be invited to take part?
Dude, I've invited you. I've invited you on investigations, and you know what? We will make that happen.
But I want to point this out. He says he's looking to make changes. And the way I interpret that is he is watching, because before they left, before they became Project Fear, right? They were Destination Fear, and Dakota and the crew basically went off to investigate with the guys. They partnered up with TAPS. Destination Fear partnered up with TAPS, and they killed it. They killed it together, right? I personally think Jason's been watching what's been going on with Project Fear, because they shot that episode and then Destination Fear got the axe. They turned around, they did Project Fear, and remember, Project Fear, they absolutely slayed. They slayed their Kickstarter. I'm trying to remember how, because I actually did document it. Hang on a minute, and I'll tell you.
Deciding that they were far from done, Dakota launched a Kickstarter to continue his idea under the moniker Project Fear. To say this crew killed their goal would be...
Okay, I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna go ahead and let this one marinate for you guys. So Project Fear basically said, we want $65,000 to do at least half a season on YouTube. That's how much they got.
I suggest you let that one marinate.
I'm getting a lot of use out of that one right there, but yeah.
Figured it.
That not only covers 2 seasons in the States, but a season like a YouTube mini season overseas. So they're actually gonna not only do some stuff in the States, they're gonna go overseas and do some stuff. But that gives you an idea of what, and this Project Fear Kickstarter launched, only a few maybe a few months after they came out and said, yeah, we've been canceled. So then they said, we're gonna do it, and if we make $65K, we'll be good. If we make $65K, we'll be good. And they made nearly $400,000. Yeah, that's killing it. And I'm sure Jason's looking at this going, that's interesting. And what's great about doing paranormal investigations, at least I've discovered this. What's great about doing paranormal investigations on YouTube is that you're under the pressure that you put yourself under, right? And what I mean by that is, we got to have something to show. We got to have a shadow figure. We got to have this. No, we don't. We don't. If we're lucky enough to get really good evidence, fantastic. But an episode could be, well, we get like, some stuff here and some stuff there. We might have one episode maybe really banging on the Estes method. Another one may be really good with EVPs. It all depends on what we define as evidence, right? And again, knocking wood, the quietest show that I think Phil and I have had up to this point was in fact Antietam. And that's after nearly 3 years of investigations. Oh wait, if you wanted to see what I was talking about with the bad hair, I'm just gonna go on ahead and show you real quick. Take a look at my do. Take a look at my do here. You'll notice that my hair's not looking good here. It's just I was getting used to Pikes Peak. I was trying to get that Pikes Peak working. And it's not good. It's not good. I'm just going to go ahead and slow this down to half speed so you can see it. And I'll just mute it because you don't need to see the sound from my hair. But, no, it's not even headphone hair, Cammy. I wish I could say it's headphone hair. But you see the sweep? See, I got the Pikes Peak, but then there was the back part. And it's doing this weird, almost like a weird comb over. Right? I'm bald, so no comment. That's not a dig against you, man. It's not a dig against you. You know I love you with the dark. Remember, you and I are simpatico. But you'll see other moments deeper in the video where it's a little rough around the edges. It is. It's a little rough around the edges. But I was also very proud of this video too. I was very proud of this video. So yeah, if you want to take a look and get some more background on how Project Fear did what they did, feel free, go on ahead and have a look. This is also a good example of a 5 Minute Paranormal. We have a lot of different we do a lot of different stuff on the 5 Minute Paranormal, but let me get back to what I was saying about with Jason. I think Jason has been watching what's been going on with Project Fear. And I think Jason's paying attention. If he's exploring options, it would stand that this is an option, because there were shows where they didn't find anything. He wanted to post them, and he said that I think he said it in that interview in the sit down he had with Kenny. He said, we had shows where we didn't find anything, and I wanted to air the shows, but they wouldn't let me. We would do, like, I think he said we would do like 30 investigations. The network would take 15, 20 at the most. And so, yeah, I think he wants to have the same freedom that not only Project Fear is experiencing. I'm sure Jason's probably checked out Amy's Crypt. It wouldn't surprise me if he's checked out Paranormal Quest. And the thing that he has going for him that Paranormal Quest and some of these other groups don't have to worry about is that Jason's with taps. They should air it if nothing happened, as paranormal, as Dave and Ryan have said before. They asked, in the last premiere that Arelis and I were at, I am pronouncing it right, Arelis, but in the last premiere that we were at, they actually polled everybody. They had 1,000 people in there, and they said, would you prefer if we didn't air an episode, or do you want us to air? Do you want us to drop an episode even if we don't find anything? And we were like, yeah, drop it, because it feels a little more genuine, It feels more genuine because you're saying, hey, look, sometimes we go to places and nothing happens. Now, Phil and I are still very new at this. I consider us very new. Phil does not want me to tell people this, but I think I feel like we're very new at this because we've been at this for not even 3 years. It'll be our 3rd anniversary as a paranormal team this July. And honestly, I feel like I feel like we have been very fortunate. We have been very blessed with what we have found. Now I'm the first one to say it too. Do I think that I have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that that the supernatural exists? No. I do not feel that. Has some weird stuff happened to me? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's been stuff that's happened that I cannot explain. And that doesn't necessarily make it scary, but boy, howdy, does it keep me up at night. And I think that's what Jason is exploring. And I wanted to share these videos, these recent videos with Jason, because and he's even said, yeah, I'm going to start airing some investigations, some stuff that we haven't shared, that we haven't shared before with the public. And that gets me excited because I would love to see some of the more chill, like, stuff where stuff hasn't happened. And I do. I love me some ghost hunters. I love me some taps. But I wanted to point out these videos I wanted to point these videos out to you all because I wanted you all to experience this very open look at Jason Hawes. He doesn't have to make these videos, and it's kind of like the gunslinger, the old school gunslinger that comes in, and he's got to deal with every young kid that wants to prove themselves, right? Now that Jason has opened himself up here, right? Now that he's opened himself up, does this mean that we're going to be seeing more of this? That we're going to be seeing him making these kind of open videos where he really just bears his soul? Probably not. Jason chose to share that with us, and for one, I'm definitely saying thank you, Jason. You're the last person. You are the last person that needs to share anything like that with us, and you chose to do that, and I appreciate it. And I really do hope that he is thinking about making a jump to YouTube. Now, I will say, I think it's going to be a very different experience for him because that means that he's going to have to find, his own crew. Maybe they've been doing that already. I mean, the thing about Project Fear that was so easy for them to go from Destination Fear to Project Fear was that you'll find out in the review that Dakota was already doing most of the editing for Destination Fear when it was on the Travel Channel. I didn't know that, and that just made me love Destination Fear all the more because, Dakota's he's an editing an editing jock like me, so I'm all about that. Hey, good night, Cammie. Good night. But and I know that Paranormal Quest do their own editing. Amy from Amy's Crypt, she does the editing. And I just think that's really cool. I don't know if Jason has that kind of support staff already in place, but if he does, what are you waiting for, man? Pull the trigger, make it happen. And that brings us to the end of episode 3 of the Grim Gazette. Hope you enjoyed it, everybody.